Valeria?
Mic check. Mic check, 1, 2, 3.
And we are live. We are. You
Oh,
can't see
okay.
us right now, but we are. Turn mine up. Mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
There we go.
We good? So if it starts cutting out either or mine's, just turn it up and then turn the main fader down. Put me on the main screen. The first one says HD. Over here. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know who's here or who's not here, but this is the Higher Thought Cast. I am Jesus or HT, depending on how well you know me or how close you can get to me. And today we are speaking to Valeria. And as you guys see in the title, we're going to discuss a little bit of everything. The focus will be dive in a little bit, but we are going to, casual conversation is always good. So, Valeria, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for accepting it.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We've been rescheduling for like months,
I
but we
know.
made it happen.
Life happens, right?
Yeah.
Life happens a lot. That's a cool thing about trying to do these ideas. Like, never know when it's be executed, and you're like, oh, we're here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's almost like perfect timing too. Yeah.
I mean, the weather's a little off, but it's all good. We're here. We made it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And before we go any further, we gotta address the room. Jose is in the back. Osvaldo is engineering today's session. So thank you, y'all. Always gotta shout out people behind the scenes. That's very important. But first question I like to ask: what made you agree to this? Because a lot of the times, I get surprised that I convince people to follow me. I'm surprised. I have them here, and I can call them my teammates.
Yeah.
So, what kind of made you agree to do this?
Sure. Well, I can backtrack a little bit. So
Go ahead.
I'm Valeria Martinez. I own a retreat holistic company. I do a lot of mindfulness retreats, yoga retreats, but then some of my retreats also do include psilocybin in a community holistic healing capacity. My company is the Balam Sanctuary.
Say that one more
time.
Balam. I like that word.
Yeah, the Balam Sanctuary. Balam is the Mayan word for jaguar. And it's a really big power animal in prehistorical times, cultures. But yeah, it's a really powerful animal. So that's why I named it after that. But honestly, Osvaldo is my cousin, so that was a big factor in me just being like, sure, yeah, I'll come on the pod.
Yeah. He had to warm you up,
Yeah. So I think, having that plug was helpful. But, it's always really fun to have conversations with people. And I know you also have some connection with the medicine. And so it's always interesting to meet other people. This is a very specific topic, it's a very interesting space. So yeah, thank you for inviting me and having me on.
No, I appreciate you accepting, because as you just said, it's very specific, but at the same time there's so much hype, so much misunderstanding.
Yeah, man.
And there's so much, because when you think about what substance is in America, and when you think about psilocybin, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
that cookie cutter aspect of it, right? So, well, before we get ahead of ourselves, how'd you even get this? How'd you even stumbled as we were talking before the mics got turned back? You were traveling. So, take us from the beginning. How did Valeria Martinez get at this point?
Yeah, so this all really started from like a personal perspective. Since I was a child, I struggled with depression and anxiety. As I got older, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, and life happens, and at some point you get sick of your own shit, and it's kind of like, okay, I don't want to live this way anymore. I mean, I would have severe panic attacks, suicide ideation, self-harm, insomnia. I mean, I could not sleep for like 10 years, and it was just like, I can't live this way. And really in 2020 was kind of like the breaking point, I think, for a lot of us. And also a lot of us had more time to really sit with ourselves and figure out, for me, I had a lot of time to figure out what was actually going to help heal me. I had gone to therapy for years before that, but I think with anything else, including psilocybin, what you get out of it is what you put in. And I think for me, I was in therapy where I wasn't ready to acknowledge the root causes of my trauma, of my PTSD. And so I kind of just like was running away from it and kind of was scapegoating it.
You
and
need a smoother view to address the root.
Yeah, and I think I was just like not ready. And I was also like not knowledgeable about, because I think especially coming from a Hispanic family where it's like, okay, we have food, we have shelter, we have a job, like what more can you ask for?
Humanity. Your humanity.
Yeah, exactly. And understanding, then doing more research on childhood trauma, and research on adverse experiences and the impact that has on brains and things like that.
Keep going.
And so then beginning to understand trauma, beginning to understand childhood experiences and trauma, and being like, oh shit, girl, I thought I had this smooth childhood, or like a normal childhood, quote unquote normal childhood, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And then reading books and stories, and I'm like, wait, that happened to me. Like, wait. Or I read how The Body Keeps the Score. And so literally I remember taking notes as I was reading that book, and I would like write down the symptoms that I resonated with, that I couldn't pinpoint a name, but I knew what it felt like. And by the end of reading that book, I had like a whole list of symptoms, and I'm like, girl, you got PTSD, you know what I mean? I'm like, girl, you got to work on some shit. And as difficult and as raw as that experience was, I like dove head deep into facing those experiences. I kind of had this like strength over me. And so then I started seeking all types of healing modalities. I did EMDR therapy. I did obviously understanding how to regulate your nervous system, what that actually means. Regulating your nervous system through breath, through yoga, through meditation. And really started to shift the way that I saw myself. I remember when I would have panic attacks, like they would take me out for like weeks, you know what I mean? I would just be depressed in my bed.
Okay. Go ahead. And what was that age, just to have an idea?
That was 24, 25.
24, 25.
So I'm 29 now. Yeah.
Okay. So in your late 20s is when you had to pull the plug.
Where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like there's something going on here. Because I was also noticing a lot of cycles, like how, and I was like just exhausted of feeling not good, not feeling myself, not having self-confidence. Everything gave me anxiety. Everything gave me fear. And then it was kind of just like, I don't want to live in a world where I'm scared of everything. And I had a breaking point. I was really committed to my self-care. I was really committed to therapy. Started seeking out women's circles, which was really helpful for me because I started to recognize that I wasn't the only person that had gone through childhood trauma. I wasn't the only person that was working on mental wounds, their inner child, all of these things. And I found a lot of community in that, and it was super helpful for me. But yeah, there was one point where I was going into a severe panic attack, and what I would normally do, or like the way that I used to cope, was through self-harm. And then I remember in that instance, I had like this little voice come through, and that was just like, yeah, you deserve way better than this. You deserve way better than this. And I started tapping into my breathing exercises that I had learned in yoga or things like that. And then, I mean, for a person that couldn't handle that for a really long time, and then to go for like, to have that breaking point where I can pause myself in a very vulnerable state and learn how to self-regulate myself, that was like a game changer for me. And then I was like, yo, like if I can do this, anyone can do this. And if I've learned how to do this, I can, I want to share it with other people. And so I started teaching Spanish yoga, mostly to involve like my parents in this process. I would teach donation-based bilingual yoga classes at parks and community centers. Started forming a lot of community relationships in that way. My parents got into yoga. They started to also just be more open to mindfulness and to meditation and self-care and things like that. And so it was dope because as I opened them up to these mindfulness practices and to spirituality and to healing, now I hear them use phrases like, oh, es que están traumados porque
Están
no pueden
traumados.
procesar sus emociones. You know what I mean? Like, they don't know how to process their emotions. And I'm like, what? Like, my Mexican ass dad is saying this? Like, this is wild.
And is that kind of bring comfort? Because as you said, you were trying to heal like
Yeah.
trauma from the parent side of things, and
Yeah.
just to see that it seems like even now they even understand it on a better level, maybe understand you even better.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I've like even hosted like family healing circles for all of us, you know, for
Okay.
like my siblings and my parents. And I approach it in a very holistic way, a very ancestral way. So tapping into having like an altar, you know,
Yeah,
during
of
the
course, of
healing
course.
circle,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
having pictures of my grandparents there, because we're all like extensions of our lineage, of our
Yeah,
families.
of course.
And so yeah, it's been really cool that they're like open to that, you know, where I'm like, we're gonna do a meditation circle, and then we're all like exploring our childhood trauma together, you know, as parent from my parents, my siblings. Yeah, it's been a dope journey. But once I started teaching yoga and facilitating these women's circles, I tapped into that passion of mine of wanting to cultivate spaces of connection and vulnerability.
Yeah.
And then I just began to realize that we're all really like seeking connection, and
Mm-hmm.
we're all really lonely as fuck, honestly, you know, and we're seeking to be seen, to be heard. And especially for people that might be moving through very difficult phases in their life, to have those spaces is very healing. And I'm also a very loving, very compassionate person. And so I felt like through retreats, it was a natural avenue for me to incorporate yoga and meditations and rituals and circles, and like be out in nature with people, and, you know, cultivating relationships over a weekend or over a week long journey. Um, so then I started facilitating retreats in that capacity. But my entry point to psilocybin was
Wait,
again,
wait.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Excuse me to interrupt you, but before we go, we take that step. When you say holistic,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
was that door open for you because, like you said, you got that epiphany where you had that ultimate control, right?
Yeah.
In between where you're like, okay, I see it, right? So was that holistic door open for you because that's what you started seeing? Like obviously the ancestral thing is kind of always there, right? Especially in
Mm-hmm.
our culture,
Mm-hmm.
it's always there. But is that holistic door open to you? Because as soon as you unlock that part of in your brain or in your physical, is that what kind of interested you in the holistic side of things?
Yeah, I think it was just because I was seeing the actual results in myself, that I was like, bro, if I can do this, like anyone can do this. And those are tools that I still use on a day to day basis to self regulate, you know, just because your brain isn't processing trauma anymore,
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that life doesn't stop being stressful. It doesn't mean that your nervous system doesn't like stop just, you know, being stressed out. And so life happens, and yoga and mindfulness and journaling and all of those tools are still things that I use to this day, you know, every day that I tap into.
it's like the shingles that keep you go up. It's the shingles that
Yeah.
keep you going, so you're okay and ready to go
And
every
like for
day.
you, right, you have like a very a need to have a creative outlet for you to
Yeah, yeah,
function. For
yeah.
me, I'm like, I need some alone time, some breathing, some stretching, tuning into myself. Like that's how I feel like I'm ready to take on the world or even engage with people.
No, I'm the same way. Like I gotta tell these guys sometimes, like you just gotta leave me alone today. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'll see you tomorrow, because I am one of those brains that my social thing overloads and I
Yeah.
can't do it no more. And I'm like, I need to go sit down somewhere in the corner and go think about some stuff, and then tomorrow I'm ready to go, because I truly understand that,
Yeah.
because the social battle for me is hard. Like even this whole thing we're doing right now,
It's a lot of energy.
it's a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of energy, especially because sometimes you'll fall into complex conversations and then just the regular surface energy, and then when you fall into complex intellectual conversations, you're like, you got to balance that both,
Yeah.
right? But I could definitely agree with that, because I'm in the same way. I need my alone time. It's very important for me to be alone. For me to do anything in a real way, I have to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
Or even to wanna start anything creative, I have to kind of first start alone, and then slowly I'll bring in people, and then we'll go from there, right? It's
Yeah.
very important, because I truly understand, because I also come from a brain it's been raised by trauma in a very serious way. So to give you a little background, so kind of the same thing, raised with a single mother, young immigrant. I've been here since I was 3 years old. I was born in Mexico, but I've been since I was 3, so I'm very Americanized, as you can tell. Haven't been back to Mexico, so raised by a single mother. A lot of mental health issues as far as schizophrenic. I had to grow up really fast, so I didn't have a childhood early on, so I had to deal with that. But the thing you said, when you understand how to manage the chaos, that's all you need, right? And then after that, you just got to make sure you maintenance and take care of yourself, and you understand that toll that it takes. Because for a while, you don't even know if that toll takes, especially when you're a child, because certain things become a game, even when you don't try to make them, but they just become a game because you're a child. So you know, when your auntie's running down naked talking to her dead dad, you're like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing today until the firefighters get here, and she starts wrestling them, right? So that's kind of the things we see. So a lot of the times I was used to the chaos, right? And that's why that peace and being alone, because I'm an only child. I was an only child for 17 years. So that alone time is kind of where, in my imagination, is where I kind of hid myself when everything else was kind of falling apart, right? So
your coping mechanism that you developed.
Yeah, and that's why creativity, and to this day, is one of those coping things that I really need. If I don't have that, something's off, and I can't do anything else that I should be doing or manage myself as far as a quote unquote normal life, right? Yeah, and that's why my imagination has always been a safe haven for me. That's the first thing before any altering mind substances that I consume. It was my imagination and be able to create worlds inside my head.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, if your external world is chaos, then your internal world you can control, and you can actually like shift it. Yeah.
You can't. When you're a kid, you can't really control anything. It just happens. Next thing you know, things are over here, but so for you figured that out, and then you said, I should pass on the message. I should teach other people, right?
Yeah.
So is it important for you to keep the personal aspect to that? Because because I could just imagine, because just the simple things we've been trying on our end over here, when you deal with humans, it's very complex. It's never simple. It does take a thing. I always tell Osvaldo, Jose, or even Camilo, sometimes I might seem rude because I don't want to talk to certain people or look at them, because I'm the type of person that as soon as I give you my attention, I'm not just looking at you. I'm looking at your past. I'm looking at your present. And I'm looking at your future. That's just how my brain functions. That's how I just analyze things, right? But sometimes I don't want to do that. Sometimes I just want to have a casual conversation, not too deep, just, right? So where you at separating the personal? Because this started very personal for you. So where you at now as far as that personal, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't share all of my story or history unless I feel like there's a point of connection in that space. I've learned how to kind of set that energetic boundary. But also, man, like when we're working with humans, shit's gonna get messy. It
has to.
And shit is going to get personal.
It's going to get dark.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so I've learned how to just embrace that. And also when people travel with you, like for example, I have a retreat in Puerto Rico coming up. People are going to travel from Denver to Puerto Rico with me to spend, 4 days together in a cabin in the middle of the rainforest, connecting to themselves, connecting to nature. That's human shit. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't get more human than that. And so I've learned to embrace that. But then what that means is that I require, 4 or 5 days after a retreat to fully recover.
To yourself.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, me alone, let me give myself
doing my
there.
laundry, getting my groceries, things together.
Basic life
like
stuff.
Basic life things, hanging out with my dogs. Like, I have learned that and also sometimes, like, I also deal with the energetic space, which can get really weird. Like, it's like, as you see, like, you're like, oh yeah, I can see people's past, future, whatever. For me, I'm like, oh, I can see all the energy that you're storing in your body. And I have tools that can help you kind of move that. And sometimes that leaves people way more like sensitive, because that energy was taking up space in their body that was actually covering a core wound for them. And so when you remove that, that energy is leaving up space for them to open up to those emotions that are very tender, you know, abandonment, rejection, guilt, resentment. And again, that's why those retreat spaces are so important, because you're held in community and you're constantly around people that can support you throughout that process. Yes. And also Mother Earth, man, like Mother Earth is like, I'm a hippie, like, but she literally is like alive and well, and she helps you heal, you know.
Well, let's give some verification, because you and I know you ran into it, because when you start throwing around certain words,
yeah,
people will dismiss you.
Yeah,
if we don't give them like actual like background, because you know, and I don't care, because I know who I am, but just for other people. So when we speak about Mother Nature connection, and disagree or agree with me or add on, right? Because as far as what I understand, well, we come from nature, we need it, right? I know when I'm in the middle of the mountains, I feel better, right? The endorphins are hitting. I'm in a better mood. I'm not too worried about my usual anxieties, right? That's just a human thing. It's proven that if you're in nature, you can get better, right? Like that's why that little joke says, "Go hug a tree," but that's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Go hug a tree. You'll feel better. Trust me. But you gotta let it work, right? Because we do come from nature, right? And the connection part is humans are social. I know now in this ambient future that we seem to live in, we kind of forget that part. We're social beings. We need each other.
It's a society that has conditioned us to be very hyper individualistic, you know, and like that's not how we're designed to be. We're tribal, you know. We're tribal humans. It's part of our species.
Yeah. So yeah, connection is very important. And as you mentioned earlier, a lot of people are lonely. A lot of people are suffering because their basic needs are not just getting met. You know what I mean? The basic need of having somebody you trust smile back at you, or asking you how's your day, right? A lot of people get home and they don't have that, right? And that's why we see in the behaviors that are starting to begin. So how did you discover that was really important, and that was kind of a core base for you to kind of start building on these retreats?
Yeah, my relationship, honestly, and to Mother Earth, like I like feel her, I hear her, and I know that can be weird for some people and be like, what is this girl talking about? But something that is coming up a lot as the psychedelic space is opening up is how limited the clinical model is in actually encompassing the vast opportunities that come with psychedelics. It's much more than just rewiring your brain. You know, there's like a whole mystical, energetic side to this plant medicine that indigenous communities have been tapped into from the start, you know? But the clinical model is very limited because it'll get easily dismissed, right? They just categorize it as like, oh, and by the way, you might have some mystical experiences. And they're like, what does that mean?
And then it'd be like, that's just randomness. And then it pissed me off. But as you were saying, the clinical model was basically designed for those things not to work out. Like if we're being honest, in this country,
it's
limited, or it was done on purpose.
Yeah,
it wasn't designed to acknowledge those part of the human experience, because the clinical model is a cookie cutter model, so people can get paid and follow rules and just go to work, clock in, clock out, right? But like as we were saying earlier, humans are very complex, right? It's not just 18-week sessions and be like, how are you doing? No, it's very much complex, especially when you go into re-engineering the trauma-based root problems that they have, right? So you say limited, to me, honestly, it was made not to acknowledge those things. It was made to keep those things out.
Yeah.
That's why it's always
And I think for some things it works, right? Like pharmaceuticals or whatever, like, cool, that shit works. But by the way, like, people still don't know how antidepressants work. And it's astonishing to me that they're still giving people antidepressants, and they can even acknowledge, like, I don't know how this works, actually. But we're missing a whole other aspect. And I think I was mentioning I was at a conference yesterday where they were bridging the clinical model with the indigenous perspective. And even the head researchers at Anschutz are like, yeah, we're missing the body, we're missing the spirit in our model, that actually the indigenous people, they live in community.
Yeah.
They don't shy away from talking about the spiritual realm. They don't shy away from talking about the ancestral space, and that they don't shy away from even saying things like, oh yeah, I can see into your aura, I can see into your energetic space, because all of those things come with these ancient ancestral medicines. They are not a substance, they are living, breathing, sentient beings. They have a soul, they have a spirit, um and they're ancient. They're way older than any of us, they're way older than any human species. So for us to be arrogant and say, hey, yeah, we know how this medicine works, yep, we've done clinical trials, like we understand, I'm like, you don't.
Yeah, it's just, it almost seems like the whole model has to be thrown out and something has to be built from the ground up to really understand the embodiment of these things that have in our brain, because
and human experiences, you know.
Yeah, and everybody's different.
Yeah.
And everybody is gonna open certain doors that people are not ready to go into. But before we go any further, because one thing that I gotta make sure I remember when we had this conversation, because I'm like you, I'm not scared to talk about mystical stuff. I'm not scared to talk about energy, because I live it on a day-to-day basis. I would be lying to you if I didn't, right? But we know the environment that we're entering, right? It's a lot of, non-believers. There's a lot of people that. So what do you think is the best way? Because as you said, that conference, it looks like it's a good baby step towards bridging something to have mutual understanding, because they have some things that might work, and there's definitely some things on this other side that definitely work, right?
Yeah.
So what's the best way to try to bridge that? Because instead of arguing and debating, we need to just work together and understand.
Absolutely. That's absolutely the best next step is, and also acknowledging, right, that there's a lot of harm being done through this movement, that there's a lot of erasure that's happening from the indigenous perspective, right, where they're like claiming it, kind of like this like clinical model kind of claims like, we found this revolutionary, product, and it's like, yo, people have been using this way before, like for centuries. You didn't find anything. People have been using this in therapeutic settings for the mind, body, and spirit for a really long time.
Well, that in itself, that's a bigger conversation, because we know since the Spaniards walked into Mexico, the indigenous people's been down, and that just goes even with what happened in America as far as the indigenous people get taken out, right? That's just kind of been the general.
And the war on drugs, right? That even classified psilocybin as, a very harmful drug, even though the government was using psilocybin to test on soldiers and do all of these different things.
And the CIA trying to mind control stuff.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah, that's a legit
so thing. There's that aspect to it. I think that in order for people to want to work together, I'm in spaces where indigenous communities, for right reason, are very skeptical to want to work in a policy side. They're very skeptical to work in any government agency, or even provide their input. And I think that there needs to be a lot of like healing and reconciliation from both sides. First, I think there's like a lot of pain, and when people are angry because of that pain, it's going to be really hard for people to want to work together. It's going to take a lot of healing from an individual side and also like a societal side. But I do think that the right answer for the collective is for all of those perspectives to work together. And we need to slow down. We can't speed this up. The policy model in Colorado is like, yeah, it's so linear. We have work groups, and then we have feedback, and then we have this, and then boop, all said and done. And when you think about even licensing people to facilitate with this medicine, where again it goes back to like, from an indigenous perspective, they would have like mentors and teachers for years before they serve medicine, to form that relationship with the plant first, and in the community, and then in the ancestral realm, the spiritual realm, all of those things that can come up.
But if we're honest, right? Because I'm with you, right? But I'm always big picture guy, right? So I'm always trying to see what does the clinical side have to sacrifice, and what does the ones that know best have to sacrifice? Because there has to be compromise, and there has to be loss, right? And as you said, the ancestral, the energy, the body, and everything, right? And we live in America, you know, people believe whatever they want at this point. People don't, the internet doesn't allow a lot of people to take certain things serious, right? Like, that's why, as I mentioned earlier, as we get into the conversation, I don't care, but the internet's the internet, right? So what sacrifices does both sides have to kind of make, like the big sacrifice? Because my humble opinion, as far as the indigenous part, I want to make sure we bring the ethical stuff and how we view this, how we treat this medicine, the psilocybin, how we view it. Because to me, I don't even like calling it a substance. I don't even like calling it a drug.
Yeah, no, I call it medicine.
Yeah, that's not a thing for me, because as my experience, psilocybin is a humbling thing that will put you on your knees and let you see what's really going on, even if you don't want to see it, right? And then on the clinical side, because I do think it can help masses of people, right? And I do believe in regulation to a certain degree. And I think what has to sacrifice in the clinical part is that open-mindedness. And we have to let go of these outdated structures that at this point we're just like, oh, well, they're here, well, let's just follow them. Okay, I guess, because I think that's the big part. If we're going to move anything forward, we're going to have to sacrifice something from the indigenous part, and we're going to have to sacrifice something from the clinical part to come to a real compromise. We just got to be ready to have that loss.
And it takes a lot of collaboration from many layers.
Yeah.
And I think we're talking about the clinical and then the ancestral communities, but I think another layer to this are the industry. The industry that's pouring money already into Colorado.
The gray market.
The gray market.
Yeah.
Which is like a whole other layer to this. That I think they're truly the ones moving this movement. They're moving this machine. Where yesterday I'm even witnessing like top researchers say, we don't know what we're doing. This is dangerous. We need to slow down, merge this ancestral wisdom. Because again, we're opening up people to something that they're probably not ready to see, and that our society is not ready to support either. You know, people are like, I'm sorry, you're shy about talking about mystical experiences. Like, bro, we're already 100 steps behind. You know what I mean? Like,
this is like the 90s, you know, like when they were still debating psychics. Like, we're not there no more. And me and Osvaldo, you know, your cousin, we go, me and him, this is our back and forth. Because I'm the mystical one in the group. I would say Jose is too. Right? Me and Jose are probably like the most like mystical ones. Got our science guy, and then our other partner Camilo, they're more of the logical person. So it's always that back and forth that we like to have, where I'm always standing up for the mystical stuff, because like how I tell them, and the reason why I've gone to this point, or even like having these conversations, because since the beginning, I don't know what it was, I always knew whatever this is not it. This is not all of it.
No,
this is not even phase one. This is not even like the reality that exists beyond this, right? I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if I dreamed it. I don't know if I hallucinated it through my trauma. I don't know what it is, but all I know, I've always had that feeling, and I haven't let go of that feeling, and that feeling has brought me along this far. Right? So the mystical can't be laughed at no more.
No.
But at the same time, persons like you and I, we have to be responsible with it.
Oh, for sure.
We have to be extremely responsible. We have to be extremely respectful. We have to really understand. And we also have to be honest. Because money's money. And that's going to have a play in everything. And there is going to be loss. And there is going to be abuse. And there might be death. It's just how I like to say it. Like Elon Musk, I'm sure he wakes up to a bunch of electric cars crashing, driving by themselves.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's part of the thing. It's how we get to the next step. So we have to be open to that. It's going to happen. You know, there's going to be a lot of things that do come up in this.
For sure. And I think that's like where slowing down is really beneficial. One, so that we diminish the harm and we really seek out systems and implement systems of support for preparation, for supporting facilitators and therapists administering this medicine, and then for the aftercare. And all of this is going to cost money.
It has to. There's no other way.
And I also understand that a lot of people are seeking to funneling money into this, into research, into patents, so that they can make money. It's like a quick rich scheme. And I'm like, but this is a different spirit. Like, if we look at what happened with the cannabis industry,
it's bad.
All of that happened, and it was fucked up, and then now if we repeat the same thing with this medicine that talks back to you, it kicks your ass. And these plant medicines, they begin to harm us, they begin to harm humans because they're waking us up.
Yeah, and it's funny that you brought up cannabis, because I always like to say cannabis is the first child. Cannabis is because I always like to say we forgot the real power of cannabis because of how political it came and how it's used as a political trope since the 60s, Nixon and the drug war. Because cannabis, it's really sad that it's because it still has a lot.
It's medicinal for sure.
It's still in it even further from just meditation levels and reaching different levels of consciousness. It still has a lot of things, but because it's so kind of became the political trope that the U.S. chose to lead the drug war, it lost a lot of that. And as you were saying, the industry.
Same thing with psilocybin, yeah.
And as you were saying, the cannabis industry right now, it sucks. Because right now, the farmer ain't making money. The grower ain't making money right now. Like, and that goes from LA to here to Vegas to Arizona, every recreational market. The market for cannabis sucks. But the good thing is that I hope that could be part of the blueprint for psilocybin, that what's happening in the cannabis right now, there's a lot of where it's regulating itself. And the money grabbers are slowly kind of seeping out. If you're not really here for a real reason and you see that the money ain't coming in like it was early, however long ago we became recreational here in Colorado, the money grabber guys are just kind of seeping out because the money's not there no more. Now, are you here because you care about the plant? Are you here because you understand what it can do? Because as we've spoken before, I do think cannabis, if we do it right, can be a good starting launch pad for what psilocybin could be.
Yeah.
But not all the way, because as you were saying, psilocybin is definitely a whole different situation within itself, right? So before we go any further, I do want you to kind of give us a detail as far as your work and kind of your retreats and stuff, because we've been hearing about it. Went a little bit into that.
Yeah. So my retreats are, again, really focused on building community. I think that is one of the key medicines that I provide. Spaces of vulnerability, and we really diminish the value that has for people when they get to share their stories and then they're in a circle in this retreat space where we live in a very capitalistic society where all of us are burnt out. So to have 3 days by yourself without your kids, without your spouse. Actually, in Florida, it was a couples retreat. So even to have your spouse there with you.
And spending real time with them.
Spending real time with them in a vulnerable space with plant medicine. I mean, and we had people like cry at the end of retreats because they're like, I don't want to look at my phone. Like, I don't want to answer emails, So that's one aspect to it is community, vulnerability, connection, time for yourself. And that's not even getting to plant medicine, like
that's just the warm-up. That's just the setup.
The setup, the warm-up. But just like anything else, I think the key to anything that you do is your intention. And going back to, we're talking about like people that just want to make money from this. I'm like, if you want to make money from this, you're probably not in it for the right reasons. And that is where incorporating the indigenous perspective is key, because they bring in the values and they bring the integrity that we need to have ethic, with this medicine.
The respect.
Yes, the respect to it. And we can be like, oh, well, that's naive. That's like everybody's going to have money or whatever, or people are in it for the money. I don't know, man. Like even from my own personal experience, I think that for anyone out there that is a plant medicine facilitator, that is a therapist that wants to administer psilocybin, we need to check ourselves too. We need to periodically check ourselves. We're like, we get wrapped up into capitalistic society, into our mindset where all we want to do is make money, or our ego is driving a car. But it's dangerous when you mix that with plant medicine. It is dangerous. It's dangerous for the people that we serve. It's dangerous for us. It's dangerous for the plant. And I've seen that side. And, you know, I even as a facilitator take breaks from facilitating. So for me, I'm like, I see the potential of the healing and the connection that this medicine brings. The money is like, you know, list number 10 of why I do this, you know? And it also takes a toll on your body when you serve this medicine. It takes a toll on your energy. And so people that are out there that are like, yeah, I'm gonna just like give medicine and facilitate like 10 sessions in like a month. I'm like, good luck, bro.
That's
good luck. I do one retreat, maybe one one-on-one journey, and that's more than enough for me.
Okay.
A month, you know, like.
Yeah, and then you mentioned that, going back to a little bit to the clinical model. That's what I mean, right? Because even like a regular counselor therapist, they don't really get checked in. They don't check in with themselves a lot.
They don't even fucking go to therapy themselves. I'm like,
exactly.
People who are like thinking to give psilocybin without them sitting with the medicine themselves, I'm like, you need to reevaluate this thing. Like, how do you have compassion or empathy for people that
true understanding?
True understanding. It is a huge responsibility to deal with people's consciousness in a vulnerable state like that.
Oh my God.
It's
so
huge.
delicate. It's so delicate. It's so powerful. It's so humbling at the same time, where you just have you have them all in your palm of your hand, and you're just trying to make sure everything works out for them. But if you're off that day, if you had a bad day, if you got in a fight with your spouse, or if
you're burnt out, you know what I mean? Where you're like, okay, this is another psilocybin session. Like, here you go. Here's the medicine. Like, all of that impacts the space.
Yeah, and as you were mentioning a little bit, and as we mentioned earlier, we have to respect this, right? And we have to really understand it, and we have to treat it as what it is, nothing more, right? Because the thing I like about psilocybin is that, well, first, I don't think it's for everybody.
Yeah.
Second, if you are here with not the best intentions, at some point you will be called out by it or the general environment. It's just how psilocybin works.
Or your body will start to tear down too. Like, I've seen some crazy things happen with this medicine.
So give us something as far as you seeing that in this experience of you doing retreats. What's kind of what have you seen? What is this experience been for you?
Yeah, no. So, you know, my training really comes from other holistic practitioners, other teachers in Mexico, in Ecuador, where I spent 3 months with a mushroom teacher to really just like keep developing and my skills with this. This is a very skill-based practice, you know?
For sure.
Like, you can have the formula or whatever, but it's like, once you're in the fire, that's when you really begin to learn how to work with this medicine.
And earlier, when we were all speaking off mic, you said a very interesting word that I use often: being authentic about it. Because I think this is not just a career. This is, are you living this? Are you really about this? Do you really understand? Because there's no 1 foot in, 1 foot out with this situation. You're either in or you're not. And if either one, you're going to probably pay the price at some point.
Oh, for sure.
And going back to the Ecuador and what you learned, that, do you mind kind of give us any kind of specific points where, as far as what you kind of learned there and what they kind of told you?
Yeah. Well, when I went to Mexico, that's really where they kind of taught me the formalities of the ceremony, you know, the rituals that go into place for protection, the prayers, the invocations, the setup of the altar, the setup of the room, how to tune into the subtleties of the energies, you know. We had a person at the conference yesterday say, like, it's important for people to be in tune with those subtle energies, even though you might not see it, you might not believe in it, they're there. And you can tell when a facilitator is trained in how to see those things and when they're not. And the difference in that she had experience with, you know, sitting with a medicine man versus sitting in a clinical model. And she was like, it was evident, you know? So, and this medicine is all about set and setting, which again relates to the original way that we sat with this is in ceremony, and all of with the incense, right? With the clearing, with the music that is being played, all of that came from the ancestral practices. So I've learned all of that in Mexico. And then when I went to Ecuador, he was also a Reiki master, which is dealing with the energetics. So Reiki is like you being trained on how to open your portals to channel clear energy from God, from source, from the universe, whatever you want to call it. And it's a healing modality that comes from Japan in how to move and clear energy. But when you incorporate that skill in a mushroom ceremony, which is highly energetic, you begin to see a lot of things that, you know, we call them, you know, energies or entities or whatever you want to call it. But there are things that get latched onto us, that latch onto our deepest pain points, that are feed off of our energy. And we can pick it up from other people. We can pick it up from our childhood, all these different things. And so through him, I've learned how to extract some of these energies and learn cleansing tools. So fire, the elements are super helpful for this. Water, fire, the earth, which is why they hold these ceremonies outside so that they can have access to all of these tools, all of these medicines to help hold that container. So yeah, in Ecuador it was like I sat in like so many ceremonies with him and helped him facilitate, and we all have different skills, you know. He's a very skilled teacher in maneuvering the energy and holding the whole container, but I have developed a skill on more of like a compassion and emotional capacity where I can tune into what you're moving through. And then through Reiki, being able to move some of those energies too. Yeah,
and as far as the environment, because to me, I totally understand what you're saying there, but I understand it through the creative process, right? As you see where you're sitting right now, right? To me, the environment's always very important.
Yeah, it is.
Because especially when you want to produce creativeness, because if you're not in the right mindset, you're not going nowhere that day. You're not doing the right thing. And aside from, if people right now that are listening want to real quick dismiss and say, oh, it's a mystical thing. No. This is a human thing, right? This is why if you ask these guys that are here right now, I'm very anal about environment. I'm very like, if it's not right, it's not right. And we'll try again. If
For
it's
sure.
Not, and even like yesterday, we did our last stream because we do one every Thursday. We started a little bit late than usual. But the energy was off. I was like, it was heavy. I was like, Osvaldo likes EDM music. Let's play some EDM music. Let's just catch a vibe. Let's really get relaxed. Or even prior week when me and Jose did a stream and we did a little photo shoot with our plants, to say it like that, right? But before we even sat down, but let's just get the energy right. Like
For sure.
Let's feel good. And from a creative standpoint, if you're listening right now and you want to dismiss what Valeria just expressed very well, it's not a mystical thing. It's if you want to hone in on something, everything has to be right. Jose needs to have a good day. Osvaldo needs to make sure he passes that exam. Everybody needs to be right, because if not,
and if that's the process for a creative process, imagine how delicate it is to create a space for healing, to create a space to connect to the to ancestral spaces. I'm like, this shit is no joke.
It's very complex engineering in the human level at the highest level. Right? Because a lot of the times, when somebody thinks about taking psilocybin, this is kind of where I'm at with them. Like, well, you drink caffeine, you are non-caffeine drink. Because that tells me a lot. That means you've never put your brain in an altering state at any point, and you probably have some sort of preset fears that this is bad. So maybe start with some coffee, drink a little espresso shot. Let's see how you feel. Get those jitteries. Let's see how those jitters feel. Don't be scared, because if you're gonna try to want to do psilocybin, it's gonna be a much worse, not
stronger,
worse, intense. Excuse the word. Much more intense. And in that intensity, there's no going back in those moments,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's why people, quote unquote, for generations, the bad trip.
Yeah.
But the bad trip to me is, and I would love to hear from you on this aspect, is you not knowing who you are,
Mm-hmm.
or not know, and that's easy to say because it takes a whole lifetime to know who you are. But in that moment, at least be aware enough of what's going on in that mind of you.
Yeah.
And have you alone before this part have walked to that dark point of your mind and really see what you got over there,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what a bad trip is. It's not the psilocybin.
Mm-hmm.
It's you.
Mm-hmm.
Because it probably opens some doors you've been denying yourself and you've been scared of. But psilocybin doesn't care. It's going to open those doors and let whatever needs to come out.
Yeah.
Right? So if you were, when you speak to your clients and the people you help, your community, what's kind of that introduction that you kind of like? It just seems it's not for everybody. It's this very sensitive thing. You're messing with somebody's brain, and that rewiring is very sensitive. So how do you kind of introduce it? What's your process?
Yeah, so I would like to kind of backtrack a little bit. I love that you pointed out that, you know, you want to start people slow. So like, you know, start with coffee or things like that. Like, you to access altered states of mind, like you don't need psychedelics, you know, like, bro, sit down and do some breath work for 40 minutes and you will probably get a lot more information. You know what I mean?
Go run.
Yeah, there's many ways, even yoga, meditation, breath work. Like there's so many other modalities where like, if I'm skeptical about a person where I'm like, I don't know if you can handle psilocybin, I usually do like a breathwork session with them.
Okay.
And I've had instances too where I'm like, you can't handle, like you gave up on the breathwork. Bro, you can't give up on the psilocybin. And once you like take that, you're in it for 4 to 6 hours.
There's no going back.
And there's also boundaries, right? As a facilitator, how responsible I am with this medicine. I'm like, if you don't have integrity with even a breathwork session, I'm not sitting with you with mushrooms.
Yeah, that's gonna be bad.
Yeah. But with the way that I present this, I have a very ancestral, holistic approach to psilocybin.
Go into that,
so
please.
that is the first thing that I prep people for. You know,
okay.
I'm like, if you aren't comfortable going into meeting your ancestors, talking to dead relatives, having an altar, going into the more mystical side, I'm not your facilitator. And that's all right. You know,
that's okay.
That's okay. And it depends. If I'm doing a one-on-one, that's one layer to it. If they're sitting with me to join a group retreat, that's a whole other layer to it that I have to prep them for.
Okay. In
terms of, you know, psilocybin one-on-one is very intense when you include 6 different other bodies with 6 different other traumas and projections.
Mixed energy.
Mix the energy, like prepping people for the vulnerability of that space. That's also important in building trust. So I meet with people 2 to 3 times before I sit with them, and really like my point there is to build rapport and to build trust. Again, finding that humanness with the other person. And there's times too where I'm like, you know what, this is an intense case, like I'm not your facilitator, you know, and that's all right. Like you don't have to say yes to everybody, you know. So one of the things that I do is prepare them from like the mystical side. So teaching them about the spirit of the Niños Santos, the holy children, which is what the Mazotec people call the mushrooms. So giving them resources on that, giving them resources on the structure of ceremony. What can you expect? You can expect chanting, people singing, people drumming, people clearing the space with sage, with sacred plants, opening prayers, closing prayers, the norms of ceremony, right? You don't talk, you don't touch, like you don't, you know, it's a very individual process. And there's no checking your phone. There's no, like, no, you're sitting here and you're introspective. We're not here to watch movies together. Like we're here, we're holding the space. And really allows people to go deep and to explore themselves. Teaching them about the mystical side, the ceremony aspect to it, and then going into what is your intention, because the intention again is going to form everything. It's going to form everything. And then I have like a preparation packet with all of these journal questions that really is just geared at is excavating your subconscious mind.
Ooh, I like that.
The more that more that you're asking yourself deep questions, going into the subconscious, like you said, the more that you're exploring all the potential options that are going to come up in ceremony. So if you do that, even if there are things that you don't think about. I've had people, because then I sit with them before the ceremony, and they're like, you know what, I haven't thought about this one experience in so long, but then I started journaling and then it came up, and so it might come up in the ceremony, and sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But hey, you already like excavated some things that you haven't even thought about in so long that actually are still causing emotional reactions for you.
So and I'm with you, but is there any other way to go about it then? Because I'm with you. There's the best way is the human way. The best way is the connectivity way. The best way is what's already in you, right? It's just bringing that out, right? But if we're gonna bridge that bridge, and we're gonna try to make sure we touch all bases, because we do want it to be clinical too, because it should help masses of people. Is there any other way?
Well, obviously during the intake form, you also take note of their experiences, what medications they're at, what support systems that they have in place already.
Any heart conditions,
yes,
schizophrenia,
all of those things.
Yeah. Okay.
But like then I think in terms of preparing their mind for this, I mean, it's like every person's different. Maybe for another person you would recommend like doing other types of therapy before they go into psilocybin.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it's a mixed bag with every individual that you deal with, right? Because sometimes most people, especially the people that are asking for help, they haven't even unlocked certain things that they don't even think that are there, but they're there. They're right there, and they're happening. And then when you press the button and then they come out and you have to deal with that monster, it's just like, okay, here we go, right? So what's your perspective? Because I have a perspective, and trust me, I hope this does help masses of people. I hope this does change the consciousness of how we view this. But there's a reality where it's not for everybody.
Yeah, no.
Right? Just like how coffee's not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's okay. Drink your decaf. It's cool. But it's not for everybody. So where do you stand on that? Where's your cutoff point? Aside from you saying maybe I'm not the one that should be guiding you, because that's good too. But where's your like, maybe you should just go get some regular therapy.
Yeah.
Where's your cutoff point as far as that?
Oh, you can tell when people are using the medicine to further dissociate versus actually like, which is hilarious, because then the medicine shows them internally and then they're like, oh my god, what did I do?
I didn't want to know that about myself. Like, god damn it, I was trying to hide that for myself.
But yeah, no, I think that also, like, with the going back to the preparation piece too, being so honest about what people can experience with this medicine and not sugarcoating it. Like, yes, you can experience a different perspective, different neurological pathways, different ways of looking at situations. In my ceremonies, a lot of people get these visions of like they open a box and it's kind of like a chapter, and then they resolve it and then they close it, and it's like a very loving experience.
But after, right?
During,
even the loving. Tell me a little more about that, because as far as what I've seen, in like how you said, we have to be honest. Because what I would say was like, get ready to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Get ready to be extremely uncomfortable.
Oh no, like and then the other side of it is like fear is a constant. Fear is a constant part of psilocybin and engaging with this medicine. So I always prep people with different tools too. Like, hey, when I get fearful, I tap back into my breath.
Okay.
Reassure yourself that this is going to pass, or even ask the medicine, hey, is this fear mine or is this something else? And the mushrooms usually tell you, like, they're like, nah, girl, you need to like lean into this, like keep breathing, you're fearful of this, here's this perspective. And then if you really learn how to just surrender and embrace what is coming up, it tends to be a pretty smooth ride. Once you start resisting, that's when things can get pretty intense for people. And then going back to the bad trip, that is a real part of engaging with psilocybin, with the Niños Santos. Having bad trips, paranoia, fear, anxiety, remembering suppressed traumas from your childhood and those experiences, all of those things can come up. And so just being super honest with people, like, this is what you can expect. Are you really ready? are you sure you want to go through with this, you know? And then, you know, really walking through with people through their preparation. And if there's a sense too where we set a dosage, for example, but they want to go lower, I'm like, do your thing. You know, you don't have to take a specific dose.
Yeah.
And I'm a strong believer that you don't even have to take medicine to sit in ceremony and get in tune.
You can meditate with it too. Or just
Yo,
sit there.
you can just sit there in the circle, and
Yeah.
I guarantee you will
The
still
drums will
feel
get
the
you
medicine.
somehow.
Whatever,
the smell, something will get you, the light, something will just kind of, because
it's the environment, it's the vibration that we have set, the intention of the space that we have set.
Because, and I think you kind of touched on it earlier, all these things is in us.
Yeah.
We didn't just, make it out of nowhere, right? It's all in us, right? We can alter our minds without consuming anything, right? Like as I mentioned earlier, runner's high is a thing. That's definitely a thing. When you
yoga high is a thing. You know, people.
Exactly.
Have you seen people walk out of yoga class like they are not here, bro? We're not here.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've made some jokes. I've definitely seen that. I've definitely seen that. Yeah, it's a thing. Because in the best way I can explain it, when I have a true creative moment, so I write a little bit, I take some photos, we do some videos. I that's my thing right now. But when I have a true moment where I felt creative, I caught the energy and I did something with it, I'm on top of the world. You can't tell me nothing. It doesn't matter if my day was bad, but because we made this moment happen, or this materialize this idea, it's a different type of high. The energy is different, and I hate to say high, but it's just the mindset is so powerful in itself, right? And that's why creativity is so freeing for me, because it does that, right? Because in my experience, when I've consumed psilocybin, it's the same thing. It makes me feel like a new person, a new human. Like, damn, I needed that, right? Because I suffer a lot from anxieties, and it's a physical anxiety for me. So after my trips, my shoulders like, damn, since when are your shoulders so loose?
Yeah.
Right? Why is your knees so like not buckling today? What's going on?
Yeah, and that's another thing too. It's like the clinical model is just focusing on the mind. We don't know what this medicine is doing to our bodies, but we feel it. You know, we feel the changes, and even like down to our spirit too. But yeah, I mean, there's like so much more that I could express and say about this medicine. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's been really popularized, but again, it's not for everybody. We need to move very slowly, move with a lot of intention, be mindful of who you're sitting with, be mindful of your mindset. I think the biggest thing is, are you truly ready to see whatever is going to come up? And if you are, then you're probably in a good solid space for you to engage with this medicine.
All right, let's so we kind of already established the base, right? So let's take this a step higher. So now you're gonna go a little bit why we're even here as far as this whole idea, right? So yes, it's definitely a medicine, definitely can help healing, right? So my theory right now, especially on the creative end, psilocybin can also be used to explore ideas in real time. It could be explored to even go into other realities. After, of course, you've done your part and you heal, you understand it, the self-awareness and the trip is there. Because that's me personally where I think I'm at, and I think I'm up for one pretty soon. Has been a while. But is there anything in your thinking where it can be more than just a medicine or a healer? It can almost be this guiding thing that can open up so many other doors if you really understand it. Because that's where I'm at with it, right? Yes, I agree, it's a medicine, and that's the first way we should expose it to everybody. But it's also just like how when the Greeks were drinking in their tea and they were philosophizing about ideas, right? It's also this launch pad to reach far-fetched ideas that are not really far-fetched, but really explore them visually in the moment and be there, or even, jump realities.
Yeah, for sure. And I think both can happen in one trip. You can go into some deep portal of healing, and then the medicine's like, all right, and then here's an idea for a book you should write. You know what I mean? Like, it does happen like that. For me, I get all these visions of future projects that I need to do in relation to being of service to humanity. Like they give me specifics, the names, they give me specifics of places that I need to go. They give me specifics on like the books that I'm gonna be writing. Yeah, or even I ask them questions about humanity, you know what I mean? Things that I'm moving through, and I'm like, how do I deal with this? And a lot of times they give you like really loving perspectives, and oftentimes it's a lot simpler than we think. I think human minds, we overcomplicate things. And when you sit with this medicine, it's just like, hey, here's this, and it's far more simpler.
And then before I forget, so when we started the conversation off mic with here as well, and Jose too, you were explaining how you are fearless in the sense where you're just going for it, right? And to me, I like people like that, because I'm myself in that way. I'm like that. I'll take the risk. I'll go broke, but I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is what this kind of is. I'm not saying I'm broke, but
yeah,
you know what I mean. It doesn't matter, because I know I'm gonna get it. I'm a hustler. I'm gonna figure something out. Right. So where does that come for you? Because it's cool to see. Because I feel we live in a generation. I don't see that a lot, and it scares me. I don't see people just getting out of the comfort zone. Go try some. Like, okay, you got your degree. I get it. Respect. You did your thing. But let's go really try to live out some of these theories. Let's go really try to push the idea. Let's really, you know what I mean? So where do you get that from? And I think it's important for a Latina woman to express that.
Yeah.
So where's that come from? That fearlessness.
I think it's kind of like what you mentioned, right? Like, what are we here to do? Are we here to be complacent and be comfortable? And I think it takes a level of us like living that life, right? And seeing it. For some people, they like that life.
Yeah, that's okay too. No judgment.
Exactly. But okay for other people, there's always like this like deep calling of like, be doing something else.
Yeah.
You could be doing something more.
Yep.
Or that, I think for me, it's that sense of like, well, I'm not going to find out if I don't do it. I can sit and fantasize and I'm like, oh, what would that be like to run a retreat in Puerto Rico? What would that be like to run a psilocybin retreat in Tepoztlan, Mexico, and bring Mexicans there and sit in with this medicine? I'm like, why don't we just do it?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a very brave person, and there's a lot of privilege, right, that we have where we have gotten an education, where I'm not married, I don't have kids, I have financial ability to even invest in my own education with psilocybin, invest in trips, invest in retreats, which aren't cheap,
Of course not. Especially like that run you just did. I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah, no, and it's just like there's a lot of privilege that comes with that, and I think going back to the healing that I've done for myself, for me, I'm like, I was plagued by like PTSD. And so being out of it, it's like, bro, if I could rewire my brain through yoga and meditation, a bitch can do anything. You know what I mean? Like that's where like the hustler mindset kind of came through. Yeah. So it's almost like a trauma response, I think. Yeah. If you think about it.
No, it is. Like that's the thing, when people hear that word hustler, is like you definitely been through some shit.
Yeah.
You definitely been at the lowest lows where you do not want to go back to.
Yeah.
So that if even at failure, if you don't try this, you already know that low, and as soon as it grabs your foot, you already know what that right's going to be like. And that's probably one of the worst feelings ever. I'd rather go fail, and I'd rather go lose it all instead of going back to the darkness empty-handed. Because when you go try and you go back to the darkness, and you can tell me, this thing doesn't go away.
Yeah, no.
It's always there. Like I tell these guys, I wake up and I have to reassure myself every day who I am, why I'm doing this, and if it's the right thing every day. And that's exhausting within itself, right?
Yeah.
So it never goes away. But when you come back and you still got to deal with that darkness, it's different when you at least want to go try and be like, okay, well, take your best shot today. We'll see how it goes. So, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's almost like I know for me personally, I need this. I just need this, because like how you were saying, you don't got no kids, you are educated, and that word privilege. With me, I get bored with regular life a lot. Regular
Me
life
too.
is just boring. I don't like the mundane shit, like even the domestication stuff that comes with living this way. I get bored a lot. Like I tell these guys a lot of the times, what I enjoy is when we go live. What I enjoy is when we go try a video idea. What I enjoy is when I put a nice, decent piece of writing together. When I put some photos that look great together. That's what I enjoy. That's where I'm alive. Now I gotta go take a random meeting with somebody. I gotta go pay bills. I gotta go blah blah blah. It's okay. I'm not complaining, but I'm bored. I'm like, what is this, right? And like, so yesterday we were eating. I think we were at this place eating, and I was sitting next to Camilo, and I was just staring at a couple, and I giggled, and then Camilo's like, "What happened? Why are you giggling?" And then all I could tell him was like, I don't understand humans sometimes, man. And I giggled because I get it, right? It's cool to have a partner. I understand the need, right? But then sometimes I don't even understand like that process in itself, right? And that's how my brain functions, right? And sometimes for me not to get bored, I have to go to certain extremes within my mind to just at least feel okay for a little bit. So I can, if I have to do the mundane shit that comes with this, I go do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just that battle never ends.
Yeah, and I think everybody's different, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody's different, but I mean, when you enter this space where you're really pursuing your passions and your dreams, it's like you're living in a different reality. It really is. And in some, like I mentioned earlier, me starting my own, retreat company was a big gamble, one, because I'm like, and also I see this as honoring the sacrifices of my parents. You know what I mean? Because I do get to have the freedom to choose what I do with my time.
Yeah.
You know, to choose to be like, actually, nonprofit work is not for me. I'm not going to be here, you know, and like try and pursue something on my own. I also think it's a privilege that we have living in America. This mindset, it's very unique to living in America, you know?
Extremely. I
Yeah.
mean, look where we're at right now, man. Like this is like, this is not supposed to be a thing, but I'm lucky that I got a good team that's cool enough to follow my crazy ass and at least try it, right? But this is very privileged where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
Is it, you know what I mean? You don't just say, oh, let's sublease something and then it's hard.
Or even like buying technology, you know what I mean? Like all of these things, learning skills. Like a lot of people, they're like scared of trying something new just because of the learning aspect of it.
Yeah, and that's what holds people a lot of the times back, and I think, in like as I mentioned to you earlier, like our company MTI, I want everything in house. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna edit, well, you're gonna be part of the team. You know what I mean? I want everybody to learn a skill, so we could just do it in house, so we don't have to go outside and ask or go pay this person. No, let's just learn it. Like when we started this, I mean, I come from an audio engineer standpoint because I also know how to do that. So this is not too far from my realm, but like the streaming setup, I had to learn the whole
growing pains.
Yeah, yesterday we ran our stream and our mics were cutting off. It pisses you off. You know what I mean? Like, goddamn again. But it's fine. We'll make sure next time is right. But it's just wanting to learn, go for it. If it doesn't happen, it happens. If
failing,
it's okay.
Getting humbled. And then keep on going. That's really what this is.
And so just to end on what started this whole conversation, where do you see yourself with this whole thing, this whole industry, this whole idea, this whole plan? That's why you should turn on the heat. I seen Jose over there cuddling his poncho, and I was like, it is cold. My fingers. No, I seen you earlier. You were like this, but
yo, my hands are a little chilly.
No,
for
I know.
Sure.
I know. But where do you kind of want to? What's kind of the end goal for you? Because obviously you want to be smart about it. You want to be respectable about it. You want to make sure the indigenous part gets acknowledged and realized, and they get their proper credit. Because it looks like you touch bases in Ecuador, Mexico. You've done your due diligence as far as doing it. Aside from you literally being from the culture, right? So what in a perfect world, if everything can go your way, what do you want out of this whole thing?
It's funny that you asked me this question because I've been sitting with this myself. As you know, like not being an entrepreneur, like constantly every day you're like, why am I doing this? And like, do I still want to do this? Like, okay, like we got this.
Yeah.
But I was sitting and thinking the other day, I was like, what, you know, I think even if things got to this point where I'm at right now, I'm like, this is fucking ecstatic, bro. Like, people trust me enough to travel around the world. People trust me enough to sit in ceremony with me with mushrooms, you know, and I get to pay my bills. I get to decide what I do with my time.
Congrats.
You know
That's
what I
cool.
mean? Like, I'm like, even right here, I'm like, I'm fucking winning. Like, this is sick. You know, I get to travel all of the time. I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to travel. Not only do I get to travel, but I get to travel with other people, meet beautiful places, stay in beautiful places, be connected to the earth. It's beautiful. And so I would like to say, I'm like, God, if this is all that's meant for me, I'm like, sick, you know, this is awesome. That being said, I am in a point too where I'm like, I also want to be transparent, especially when it comes to plant medicine, that this is not an easy road, and that this road will show you the duality. There's a lot of light, and I think I feel very blessed by spirit, very blessed that the medicine has guided me in a lot of ways to where I'm at right now. And that right now the medicine is like, take a break, because if you can just keep pushing, pushing, and pushing, one, you're gonna burn yourself out, and you're not you're doing yourself a disservice, the people that you're serving a disservice, and the medicine too. And that life happens, and when the darkness comes and shows up for you, because it will,
Yep, definitely.
it will,
Yeah.
take your time. There's no rush. Don't feed into this whole capitalistic society that I have to get and be a hustler and do all the things right now. Right now, I'm like, I'm gonna take a step back, and I'm gonna reevaluate, you know, if this is still of integrity for me. If all I end up doing is just holding space for my family and my close friends in the future, great. If the medicine is like, you know what, maybe like you shouldn't be serving this medicine, I'm like, sick, bro. I've already like done so
Mm-hmm.
much. Like, I'm already overfilled and overjoyed. Um, and you know, I'm like, and the medicine has already told me like, we are with you, we're always with you, but take a break. It's important for us to take breaks in this work. It's very intense,
Yeah,
very intense.
and that goes back to the idea where as we have numerous conversation about this. This is the point proven where this is not a recreational thing.
No.
It's not. And even if, because you're a human being, you're your own person, you can do whatever you want in your private time, and you probably will. But the psilocybin will not allow you, because at some point it won't be firing anything.
Mm-hmm.
You will just be eating dry mushrooms, and that's what it is, right? And
Yeah.
and 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 that's why it's so cool to be exist at this point and to see this, right? Because even with all the negative stuff, even with all the misunderstanding that is and will occur, because it's just part of the transition, it's so cool to just be able to even have this conversation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then last question for you. How long are we at right now? Okay, cool. So last thing. Do you have is there any theories you have out there as far as things that are still unknown to you as far as this? Is this it, things that you think about that you're like, you know, some aside from you, the service you do just as the person that's generally curious and has the intelligence to kind of expand, like how I told you earlier. Right now, where I'm at in my personal, as far as consuming this within myself, I'm where I want to be able to open other realities, and I want to be able to get to the point as when you're an active dreamer, and like if you have an idea, let's go to this space where we could just construct it. We can actually see before we put it out here in this reality, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at. So, do you have anything of that from your perspective that you've been theorizing about, and then you've been kind of plotting or even debating, thinking, and seeing
Mm-hmm.
other perspectives? Is there anything like that on your end?
I think I would just say that I mean, that's why in the ancestral spaces, indigenous spaces, they call life the great mystery, el gran misterio.
Gran misterio.
And that's what, like, anytime that I sit, the more that I sit with this medicine, I'm like, all I know is that I don't know shit.
That's a fact.
The more that I sit with this
We
medicine,
love that saying here.
yeah, I'm like, the more that I sit with this, the more that I facilitate with this, the more that I see both the light and the darkness of this, I'm like, man, this medicine is driving this. We are companions for this medicine, but the medicine is really driving it.
It's really the star.
Yeah.
Really the star. It's not the person consuming it, it's not the person
Sitting
it.
with you. Yeah, no.
And I'll be honest with you, Valeria, because the conversation that me and Osvaldo were having about this happening, where I was like, that's where I really wanted to challenge you, right? Because you know the hype of, and you know people, you know, it's the new thing, so whatever, they'll get with it, right? But is Valeria really about it? Is that humbleness there? Is that intention right? Because a lot of the times it's not, and it's really refreshing as far as you are and as far as you will go. That like I said earlier, if it tells me, no, go do something else, you'd be like, okay, thank you. And it's good to know that, because it's, in this society, it's scary when things get in the wrong hands.
Yeah.
And that's when, and if you don't really have that humbleness or be able to check yourself, and like you said, we don't know shit. Like, that's how we end every debate we have in this room.
Basically,
right?
It's like,
back
we don't know shit.
We don't know shit. You're right today, Osvaldo. I'm right tomorrow, but we don't know shit. Period. That's just how it goes, because who knows, right? We still don't know. Oh. It's a bunch of theories on theories on theories. We hope one of them hits, one of them sticks, but we don't know, right? We don't know. We're so surface level as far as humans really understanding our full potential within ourselves.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I really admire that, and it's refreshing to hear that, and I'm glad that in the position you are and how far you came and you will go, that you have that, because that's important. Because, like, I'll be honest, that's the thing I was telling as well. I was like, but you real about it, man? Is she like, or is she like just, you know, doing it because
everybody else is doing it?
Yeah, type of thing, right?
No.
And that was like my big concern with this whole thing happening, because, like we mentioned earlier, like we gotta challenge these people that think they want to do this, because that's another big part of making sure this goes smooth.
For sure.
Because if it's an egotistic person, whew,
and it's especially in the spiritual space too. There's a lot of egotistical people that mask themselves as like, I've done the work. I do yoga and meditation every day, and you know, they even like manipulate the medicine too. And when you sit with them in these spaces, you will come out feeling like shit, you know?
The energy, you feel it right away when somebody's faking it, right?
Like, you feel it right away.
You feel it. Like, last time I felt like that energy, we threw an underground rave. Yeah, it was underground. We had some other, I guess, DJs or other event people there, and he was your typical guy, you know, little crystal rocks, you know, poncho, you know. But I was like, what is this? Like, you don't know. I'm sure you don't even know your own shadow, my friend.
Yeah.
And it's that idea, right? Because I think that's another big thing. Because, and don't get me wrong, those people, the medicine will push them out at some point. And
it's gonna be dangerous. Yeah, it's gonna be scary.
Yeah, but you know, even when people joke around about saintness, right? That's crazy,
bro. That's some real shit too.
Like the fact that you want to just joke around and look cool and to put a cross upside down. And I'm not the most religious person, but I know for a fact you don't just mess with those type of things.
And you're calling that in too.
Yeah, you don't just open that door just for shits and giggles, bro. Like there's real consequences for you to open that door. There's real darkness that comes if you don't understand truly what you're doing. Yeah. And like how you were saying, have to be aware even of the smallest energy, because if you're not, you might leave a door open for somebody, and when they're at home by themselves, that's when things can get complicated, right?
For sure.
But anything else you want to say? Anything you want to plug in? Make sure to let everybody know where they can have you and see you. Yeah. Content.
For sure. Well, if you would like to continue to follow my journey, or even like be up to date on any retreats that I have coming up, as I mentioned, I host retreats with psilocybin, but also retreats without psilocybin as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you can follow me at the Balam Sanctuary on Instagram.
Go follow. Go follow.
So it's TheBalamSanctuary. I believe I did that right.
Good for you. You are not dyslexic. I would have stumbled somewhere in between the beginning. That was great. My
Well,
mind's
yeah,
like,
no.
what should you say?
Yeah, no. Thank you so much for having me. And again, just like really expressing like the humbleness. And even for me, I'm still learning. I'm still growing so much. I'm still learning how to be in reciprocity with the indigenous culture, with the medicine. So just take it slow, take your time, and be careful out there, y'all. There's some sketchy shit happening with this medicine.
A lot. And then last thing, no pressure, but I hope this is one of many other where we engage in content, or as you said earlier, maybe even us showing up to one of your retreats and really kind of experiencing that aspect. I don't think any of us, I mean, I know we probably have ideas and we've tried different things here, but I hope this is the bridge where we can continue to create, like, to develop that content on that end and just have these conversations more.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
that's just letting you know, MTI has an open door for you.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I mean it. Whatever I could help, whatever, I mean.
Yeah, I appreciate
let
it.
us know.
Yeah, no, and I think it'd be cool too to do an episode of like if you all experience a ceremony and like
Osvaldo has to come on. We gotta get Osvaldo in ceremony,
and
man.
Give like the different perspectives of like the clinical model versus like the ceremonial part of it. No, I think that'd be fun. And again, if it feels right, if it feels like the medicine wants this to happen too.
No, for sure, because and I like that you're like that, because like we said earlier, we've been rescheduling, we've been hopping around, things has happened, life has happened, but we're here now, right? So Valeria, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate your perspective, and please keep at it. Please do.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, please like, subscribe if you care what MTI is doing, and if you run into this stream or this video, please go follow Valeria. And this has been another episode of the Higher Thought Cast. Peace.